about the last one. Hopefully it's about the last one of these virtual ones we have, but I think we're close to getting there, but time will tell. So thanks everyone. Look, today, virtual Tableau user group for Brisbane. Fred, thank you very much. Fred and I co-host this. Truth is, Fred does most of the work in the background and I get to sit here looking good. So thank you, Fred, for your efforts on getting this stuff together. Really appreciate it. I'm doing the slides. Oh. So. And of course it goes for the wrong screen. So, welcome to the Tableau user group. If you'd like to get on any of our user groups and distribution lists, there's a LinkedIn group on the right-hand side. If you'd like to use the scanner to get that, and also just to nominate to talk at a future tag. These are all about showing what we're doing as a group. It's great. We've got a few people today that are showing us some stuff they've been doing. Really great to see, and we've got so we'll move into that. First of all, quick acknowledgement of the country. I'd like to begin by acknowledging traditional owners of the land of which we meet today and pay our respect, my respect, to their elders past, present and emerging. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander and First Nations people here today. So for today, the agenda. The first bit is just me, and I've got 2 minutes to go, so I'm going to be fairly quick now. First, we've got Dr. Marc and Motta. He's talking to us about how the TMR are using Tableau visualizations in government. They're using embedded analytics, which is a pretty hot topic these days in Tableau. So this is making it so it's looking not like Tableau, but just a website that's very interactive. Then we're moving over to New Zealand. We've got Alex Waleczek. Alex is a long-time Tableau user. Alex and I have known each other for be coming up on 10 years, I'd be thinking. Alex has moved to a Salesforce practice now, and he's now the Tableau lead at a pre-existing Salesforce practice down in New Zealand, and he's going to tell us a bit about Tableau CRM. Then we have a couple of people from Tableau, Marc, Psaila and Razia, and they're going to take us through some of the new functions in Tableau. So with that, I might just hand over. Marco, would you like to take the screen?
Thanks, David, and thanks to both of you for inviting me to speak at the Tableau user group in Brisbane. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. I'm going to get straight into it because I feel like I'd like to this talk has got a couple of parts to it, and I'm going to try and fly through the first part where we talk a little bit. I use that term embedding a little bit ambiguously for a reason. I wanted to, I guess it's a bit of embedding the data visualization and data in general in government, but also then, the more technical part of embedding it into a site and a website and a SharePoint site. So I think I want to give you a bit of context about what we're doing and in TMR and how we're embedding data visualization, data analytics, and good data practices into our organization. But then I also want to talk to you about the technical aspects. So again, thank you for having me. I'll go straight into it, and hopefully there'll be lots of questions at the end. I guess where I want to start is that in the last 5 years, our department has worked really, really hard to mature the way in which we use data to support good decisions. To me, data, it's all about decisions. If you don't use data to make any decisions, there's no point in having data at all. Like that T-shirt that you were showing us before, Dave, is data sits in your database. There's no much use to it. But this is not a story just about data and software. To me, it's about how we have significantly shifted our culture, our TMR culture, around the use of data visualization. And that's not just my team, that's also other teams that are represented here today, including the team that Michael Lawson is part of. It's about how we shifted that culture to use data visualization to drive evidence-based transport decision to monitor. We monitor, in my team, we monitor close to $5 billion worth of infrastructure investment every year. And we do that to make sure that our Queensland community is connected. I'm having problems playing this video, which is a slide talking about what TMR does, but basically TMR is a really large organization with more than with lots of kilometers. It manages lots of kilometers of roads, it manages public transport. And like I said, it manages close to $5 billion a year spent on infrastructure, which my team actively monitors through some of the dashboards I'm going to talk to you about today. And it is widely accepted, and this is kind of always my starting point, that data is key to good decisions, especially within the transport sector, but in every sector.
Marc,
yeah.
are you able to share your screen? Is there a presentation?
Oh, you're not I'm not sharing the screen. I thought I was. That's okay. Just let me. That's fine, because I haven't really shared anything important yet. That's good. Thanks for letting me know.
That's better.
No worries.
Let me know when you can see it.
Yes, it's there now.
Awesome. It is widely accepted that data is key to good decisions. I don't think I have to tell you guys that. It's not so much because data can make us absolutely certain about that an investment or a project will deliver a good outcome. Rather, I guess data helps us to be approximately right instead of being precisely wrong. There's a quote from Glenn Lyons that he made a little while ago. He's an important transport practitioner. But to me, in general, data on its own doesn't really tell us much about what worked and what didn't work, and what we should do and what we shouldn't do. That a metric increases while another decreases or another remains stable, it doesn't really help us deciding how to best spend the limited resources at our disposal. I don't know, $5 billion a year sounds like a lot of money, but when you're trying to manage a network as big as Queensland, that's really, you know, every day there's hard decisions to make about what to prioritize. And so, you know, data is really about helping us with that. As Stephen Few kind of argues, though, in his recent book, The Data Loom, and that's a quote that I've got on the screen, if data is a new oil, just as oil is only useful once it's refined, data really is useful only once it's processed into understanding, and I dare say into data visualizations to drive insights. Indeed, you know, data is really only very useful when it is refined through analysis and through visualizations into insights. But that comes with quite a bit of effort, and you might have seen this Gartner chart before. Basically, you know, the scripting and diagnostic kind of analytics that it's proper to some of the work that we do, it's a lot of human input, but in the end, you know, the gain is that we are able to do that feedback loop into how we you know, we use the key performance indicators to then refine the way that we invest our money. I find, though, that in order to achieve this objective, one of the most effective weapon in that, you know, that we have is really this data visualization, and Tableau is key to that. And for about 5 years now, we have been producing a very large interactive data visualization dashboard that uses Tableau to manage this big portfolio of infrastructure that we have. We call this a Queensland Transport Snapshot. We call it the Snapshot for short. And the need for this tool really came from a requirement placed on us to measure a set of key performance indicators that came out of the Transport Coordination Plan. And, you know, without boring you with the details, the Transport Coordination Plan is really the way that we as TMR manage that transport network and manage to try and achieve the objectives that we set out for the transport network. And to achieve this, you know, the snapshot, the Queensland Transport Snapshot, our dashboard, provides an outlook on that performance of the transport network in the previous 5 years by measuring each individual KPIs that is set out in the Transport Coordination Plan. To do it efficiently, we leverage Ultrix, and we use that transformation software to sometimes with a bit of AWS when we need a bit more grunt to really do that data transformation before we put the data into Tableau. Ultrix has been really good for us in particular because it has allowed a lot of people that are not necessarily IT experts to be able to use to work with data and get the data to a place where it can be easily visualized without necessarily doing a lot of code, I guess. On the other hand, Tableau has really been, our bread and butter. We use, we've got in our transport snapshot, we've got 32 unique data sets. Some of them have got go all the way down to 100-meter segments for the Queensland State Control Road, which is more than 30,000 kilometers. I can't remember now. I should have known. We've got 30 metrics. We've got 50 individual charts. We've got more than 520 sheets. It's a very large dashboard, and it is, there aren't, to my knowledge, there aren't many of this kind of dashboards from government agencies in Australia. But with such a large array of metrics and information, we had to really be sure that we were to really make sure that the dashboard could cater for different users. And in the first instance to do that, we've kind of like include a table of contents and all those sorts of things to help people familiarize themselves with the data. But to me, what's really helpful is the way that we've structured our template. It goes from the way that we layer this, kind of helps you guide through a bit of a step-to-step process, depending on what kind of user you are. There's a bit of a user story behind each of the parts of this. So the first part is the icons at the top. We've a few years ago, we kind of stumbled across this way to make icons, and we've kind of continued ever since. These icons can change, color based on the numbers that are shown, and so we've got all these calculations in the background for these icons to be dynamic. So if you change a filter in the data, the icons also kind of follow that. So that becomes but at a first glance, you can have a look. Get the this particular visualization is about walking and cycling, and this one showing walking, and you can see at a glance you can see whether things are going well or not. That's really the level that a lot of our kind of leadership team needs to be at, because they don't really have a lot of time. But once you kind of step through, then the next level is usually a chart or a line chart or a bar chart, a histogram, just to kind of break this down, in this case by regions, and you can get a bit more detail out of this. This is the kind of medium level of detail, and we've placed a few different filters on the side to get that to break down the data as you would, and it can be broken down on many levels, including LGAs, urban centers. So lots of different, especially for us, the geography is very important. This is why we use Tableau in particular, but we can break it down a different geographical level. And finally, if a user is really interested in exploring the data at the most disaggregated level, we usually provide a map on the right-hand side of the visualization, again, kind of flowing through from top to in an F kind of shape, from the top to the left at the bottom, and then to the right. The map is really, for those practitioners that want to interrogate data at a very high, at a very low level. But this is not, this is useful, but having a visualization like this is not really useful if you don't try and unlock what the visualization mean by, we're only, we're experts in visualizations, we're experts in data, we're not experts in every individual subject matter across TMR and across transport. And so what we do is, to increase that that understanding, we need to use the knowledge of subject matter expert to get to increase that analytical maturity in the organization. And to do this, I guess this is kind of the crux of this, the first part of embedding. To embed this in the organization, we found that the most effective ways are really to organize workshops where we could discuss the data with the people that both understood the data, but also understood the context. For example, in the context of active transport, that slide that I was showing before, you need your active transport expert, the people that understand what kind of infrastructure they've got on the network, how do people behave from an active transport point of view. Same for public transport, same for roads. It's really about, the process that we follow is really about getting people to talk and to engage with that data, which has now been visualized and it's now easy to understand for them. And I think when we started this process a few years ago, people just look at this for the first time and almost like we're excited, sometimes question the data. Nowadays, they were like almost like seeing it for the first time through the lens of Tableau and the visualization that we created for them. Whereas now, the process has been embedded, and the more of these workshops that we do, the more kind of open-ended question we're able to ask people. It's like often we ask things like, what do you think? Why do you think this metric is going up, or is going down, or is increasing, or is decreasing? Is it getting worse? Is it getting better? And they can say, oh, maybe it's that because we spent money in doing that piece of the active transport network, or that we added a section of busway, and so we can go and dig through the map in those workshops. And that's actually what we do. We go and dig with the map and say, oh, actually, yeah, you're right. Like you can see here that once you hit that year where you deliver that piece of infrastructure, that's actually provided good benefits. And so through that process, having done this for a number of interrelated metrics, and the good thing about the large dashboard, it's also that all of a sudden you find that, hey, safety is connected with maybe the number of trucks that are on the network, or the pavement is connected with the number of trucks that are traveling on those roads. Is the pavement degrading faster because there's more trucks, or is the pavement remaining is in better conditions these days because there were less trucks than we expected, for example. Those are all things that you can do quickly because you've got all this data and all these metrics at your fingertips. And now, in the context of this workshop, you can actually get, you can get people to play around with different metrics and interconnect and then start getting ideas flowing. And if you've been part of a big organization, you would know how siloed often big organizations are, and TMR is no exception. So it is about also breaking down the silos. People from safety can talk to people from freight, can talk to people from roads, can talk to people from public transport, and start to kind of that conversation. So we also think that as part of that, we're almost like providing a good service to the organization in general to start that conversation as well and draw those connections. Finally, once we gather all that information, we found this kind of, Tableau is great at having all these little ways to display data and commentary. Like a few years ago, we kind of started to include that commentary inside that little question mark there as a tooltip, and it kind of a really good way to not clutter the visualization, the dashboard, but allow people that are more interested to get lots and lots of commentary there about why certain things are happening in that data. Actually, I realized that I feel like I've opened the wrong presentation. I'm missing one of the parts of that. Let me see if I can grab the other one. Apologies for that. But yeah, so basically, that's the first part of the presentation. But as we step through, the way that we've been doing this, we've also found that often it's important to try and get people to engage with the visualization in an easy way. And what we found in the past, one of the difficulties was to try and get people to actually sign into Tableau. And so one of the things that we found was useful was to basically try and embed that into SharePoint so that we could point people rather than tell them, oh, go into this link and sign in, and if you don't have access, we'll give you access. We've actually embedded this into SharePoint then for a number of reasons. One is to help with that access. The other one is that, and more recently, we've been able to get SAML integration for SharePoint. So now basically the user doesn't even have to sign in. You get in because SharePoint is already signed in or signs you in as a user. You can now access the dashboards that you're allowed to access directly without even having to sign in. It just loads as a part of the website of the SharePoint site, which is, in my mind, is really kind of the what we wanted to do. And our IT people have been really, really helpful, including the team that Michael was part of, has been really, really helpful to work through that and to achieve that more recently. But one of the things that we've also found is that Tableau, once you get to this kind of size of dashboard, Tableau is not like the story function that we used to use is very clunky. We found users really didn't like navigating in that way. Some users don't see the scroll bar. There was a lot of kind of issues with that. And just having tabs is quite hard, because once you get to 36 tabs, it's hard to see all of them. So one of the things that we've done is to do these menus that you've seen kind of popping up on the screen. We have once we've embedded Tableau into SharePoint, we could then use the Tableau JavaScript API to do whatever functionality we wanted to do, including kind of pop-up menus. And so we've used that combination of HTML code, SharePoint, CSS, and ultimately JavaScript functionality through the Tableau JavaScript API to embed that into SharePoint and to provide that functionality. And there's lots of functionality that we haven't necessarily explored. One of them that we're planning to explore in the future is to be able to, with JavaScript and CSS, you can use libraries like Bootstrap to be able to resize things according to what your window looks like. And so things like mobile phones, rather than having to do that Tableau mobile phone view, which again can be a little bit flaky in my experience. We found ways to use just JavaScript to reorganize different bits of visualization that are then included in there. And so, we're exploring some of that to make some of that content more accessible. And, without boring you with code, if you're interested, this is kind of how we did it. It's very, very simple. You can find there's a really good tutorial on how to do this in Tableau. But basically, you need to load a couple of the JavaScript files. One's from Tableau, one you need to kind of create yourself, but it's basically just calling the visualization from your server. And then you can use these div classes, which are, this function, like the switch view function, this JavaScript function, to be able to call different bits of the visualization in the workbook. You can also do more complicated things, which we haven't done. You can use that to even filter, and you can put the filters in JavaScript. I've seen that done by other people I work with. You can do parameters. You can do a number of things. And again, this is not a thing for every visualization. It does take a little bit of time, and it is quite it's something that you want to do for a visualization that you think needs that extra kick. But it is quite helpful in those situations where you want to create something that really looks and feels like a website, and you don't want people to think that it's an external thing loading up. So I guess just to wrap this up, our experience is that in TMR is that using those different approaches, using all that, trying to get the users closer to the data, trying to get the experts that may not be data savvy closer to the data, has really helped us to to kind of like to draw people closer together, to help that communication going, to make sure that, I guess we have to make complex decisions, complex trade-offs every day to really help, to really use that data and visualization to help people to make better decisions and to, ultimately help connect our community, because that's what we're trying to achieve, and make the most out of the resources that we have. And that's it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Marco. You hit on some really good points there. Embedded analytics, and I can reinforce our experience as well. Taking Tableau as a utility and making it a natural part of the way people are using it, and almost embedding it into their processes. That is such a strong thing, and we're seeing more and more of it. So thank you very much. Let's move on. We're a little bit behind time, but only by a minute or so. Alex, would you like to kick in with yours?
I would. Let me organize my screens. Just a matter of hours. There we go. Great. You should be seeing that.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'll start with a quick introduction, although Dave has done that kindly in the beginning already. I'm Alex. I work with Tableau for around 6 or 7 years, I think. I'm currently the analytics practice lead at Davanti in New Zealand, and we are the largest Salesforce partner in the country. So they decided now that Salesforce acquired Tableau, that it makes sense to have an analytics practice and sort of bring that into the offering. So that's what I do, and that's why I work a lot with TCRM at the moment, and sort of compare it to Tableau, see where either of the tools shines and what can we use for what purposes. I'm also a Tableau user group ambassador. I co-lead the Auckland Tableau user group together with a friend of mine. Today we're gonna talk about Tableau CRM or TCRM. I changed the title a little bit from "Do you need to care about TCRM?" If you have heard about Betteridge's law, if you have headlines that end in a question mark, usually they will be answered with no, and that didn't really make sense. The purpose of that is of the talk is really to help you understand what TCRM is, especially if you don't use Salesforce. If you do use Salesforce, you might have heard of Einstein, but for most of us, and certainly for me, when I started working with Salesforce, I had no idea what Salesforce is or what Einstein really is or does. So it's really sort of now that Tableau CRM is available and Einstein Discovery is available in Tableau to explain to you how that can be used. Want to explain what it is, how it fits into the two ecosystems, and where it actually shines and how you can use it. I'll also try to do a brief demo. We'll see how the time allows that. And at the end, I'd really like you to be confident enough to create it yourself. Every thing I do is documented in a really great blog post by Bobby Brill of Tableau. So it explains how you get your own instance of TCRM and how you can create your own models going forward. Cool. So we start off with a bit of terms and conditions, because since Salesforce called Einstein Tableau CRM, everybody in the market is confused, and that goes from customers to people at Tableau and Salesforce to people that work at partners. So if I talk about Tableau, I talk about Tableau as all of us really know it, the core Tableau desktop and server platform. Tableau CRM or TCRM is a Salesforce product, which used to be called Einstein and does a bit of visualization and a lot of AI and machine learning. The Tableau platform really at the moment is both of these products together. If you look at the messaging of Salesforce and Tableau, they really basically treat it as the same platform and not really a big difference. And if you look at the features, they merge more and more. And if I talk about Salesforce, I talk about the CRM platform, not necessarily the company that also owns Tableau, which makes it more confusing. Also, full disclaimer, I'm obviously a bit biased having worked with Tableau for so long. So everything I say here, it's always sort of in comparison with Tableau and what Tableau would allow you to do and how it allows you to do it. What is TCRM? I briefly touched on it. It's a lot of AI and a little bit of visualization. You can do dashboards and charts and a bit of ETL in Tableau CRM, but it's really no comparison at all to what Tableau provides you to do, like in terms of customization and design and possibilities, what you have there. Really, Tableau takes the cake there. Where Einstein or TCRM really shines is the whole AI and machine learning capabilities. They are super useful if you're already a Salesforce customer and it fits right into the sales process. And for Tableau users, I'll explain today how you can utilize it and how you can actually have models and predictions within your dashboard within half an hour or less without any code or anything. A bit sort of how that all fits together. So that's how I see it, how it was before Salesforce acquired Tableau. Two very separate systems, and Einstein really sat within the Salesforce ecosystem. To use Einstein, you basically had to be a Salesforce customer. You had to have your business processes on Salesforce, your data in Salesforce to actually use Einstein, the visualization engine and the predictive engine. With the merger and with the acquisition of Tableau by Salesforce, that all came together, and now it's very much overlapping. So you have Salesforce on the one hand, Tableau on the other hand, and you can be a customer of either or both, but you don't really need to be a customer of both. You can use Tableau without Salesforce, Salesforce without Tableau. And if you do use both, sort of the overlap likely is TCRM. It allows you to create predictions and models that you can use in Salesforce and in Tableau. And again, there's a bit of overlap in functionality, but by now the features really allow you to integrate those two really tightly. So you can create data in TCRM out of Salesforce and take advantage of the Salesforce features and push the data right into Tableau for visualization. You can visualize something in Tableau and actually embed it in a TCRM dashboard, so that for your user who is used to TCRM dashboards, it doesn't really make a difference anymore. In the future, I see that going much closer. So the overlap will become more and more. If you are a Salesforce customer, you have stuff like new connectors, custom SOQL queries, single sign-on. If you are a Salesforce customer, you will be excited. If you are not, you probably stopped listening by now. But for now, it doesn't really give us a lot of change as a core Tableau user. But the discovery thing is a really big piece of that really helps you utilize the power of AI in Salesforce. And yeah, the real value in the end is sort of to combine those two platforms if you have the ability. But after all, we are in a Tableau user group, so I won't go too much into detail there. So what does it do? How does it work? And how can you try it? If you have heard of business science, which Tableau sort of pushed in the last 6 months or so, it's really the idea that prediction is, or that data science is something that is very accurate. You use it for fraud detection, for example, and sort of a fraction of a percent in increased model accuracy will result in millions of dollars of detected fraud or that sort of thing. Business science is on the other hand, where you want to get a rough idea how something scores, but it doesn't need it doesn't need to be super accurate. So for example, you can predict how likely it is that a customer churns or how likely it is that an opportunity closes. It doesn't matter if it's 71 or 71.5%. It matters if an opportunity is likely to close 90% or if a customer is likely to churn 90%. And then you can see, okay, that's probably the one that you want to get in touch with and not the customer that is 10% likely to churn. The only things you actually do to make that work, and which I'll show you next, is actually you upload a data set to TCRM, you go through a visit, and by default, you don't even need to take any major decision. You can just say, okay, I'll go with the defaults. And TCRM will go off and build the model. For a small data set, I tried it for sort of the Superstore, 10,000 records. It took around 10 minutes. I tried it with larger data sets and it takes a bit longer, but usually sort of within an hour or two, you will have your results. And if you consider that basically that is all computation time, that is not setup and configuration, That's a huge time saver, and you don't even need to be a data scientist to do that, or need to have a data science team to actually apply that. And the other great thing is that Salesforce actually provides a free instance of that, and that is not a trial that expires after 2 or 4 weeks. That is a full instance that you can use as long as you want. You have certain restrictions there in terms of you can't have other users in there. You have a certain amount of data that you can only use, I think up to 250,000 records. But you can use the full functionality, and you can play around with it as long as you want before you put it into production. Or sorry, before you actually have to buy the licenses to then put it into production, because you won't be able to productionize it properly out of the demo org that you can get from Salesforce. With that, I'll jump into a demo, and no need for you to really like take notes or anything what I'm doing. I'll share a blog article afterwards where you can go to and just have a look and see how that works, and do it step by step. It'll show you how you get this demo org, and how you get into the screen where I'm in now, and how to progress from there. So what I'll do first is, that's sort of the home screen, and what I need to create first is I need to bring the data into TCRM. So I can click create here and say I want to create a data set, and in this case I want to create a data set based on a CSV file, and I have this here in my other window. I'll drag and drop it here, and it's the well-known Superstore by all of us. And what we want to do is actually predict how likely it is that somebody returns their order. If you remember Superstore, you have your orders table, and you have returns that tells you which of those orders were returned. So in this data set, I have all my orders up to, I think, June or July this year. And that's the training data set that I'll use to sort of train the model. I'll call that Superstore demo. I go next, and I can change a couple of things here. I can change how they should be treated, that the row ID, for example, it's not a measure, it should be a dimension. It's similar terminology to Tableau, slightly different in the specifics. But basically now we tell Salesforce or TCRM that data can't be aggregated. That's just a dimensional value. The return flag, that's something I created. It's 0 when it wasn't returned, and 1 when it was returned. The rest is sort of the default, and I click upload file. Tableau CRM goes ahead and does its thing. For the data set here, that shouldn't take too long, so we'll just wait a little bit. And that's sort of, once the data in there, then you can do all your machine learning and prediction stuff on top of it. Again, if you have an actual license for it, you can automate these things. You can pull the data from Tableau or Snowflake, for example, to bring it into TCRM and regularly update your model and what it learned. While that does its thing in the background, it takes a bit longer than before. I prepared something, and I have my data set. Well, I have the data set here already. So the next thing after I created my data set is I create a story, which is what TCRM calls these predictive feature, the Einstein discovery bit. Again, there are a few things that are pre-built, and that's typically stuff that you get out of Salesforce. But in this case, I want to create it from a data set. And I choose my Superstore demo. And now that's the wizard I talked about, and you'll see there's no code or actually technical knowledge required. What I want to do is I want to analyze the return flag, and I want to minimize the return. So what that means is my aim of this prediction is I want to get as few returns as possible. So I want to minimize the number of rows at which the return flag is 1. I want to show it as a whole number larger than 0. The return flag or the returns can never be negative. And I'll keep the rest, the name and the app in here. I can get insights, which basically just tells you how things are correlated, what are the main driver for a certain prediction and that sort of thing. Or I can do insights and prediction. And in this case, I get my insights, and it already builds the model for me, so I can just deploy it and put it into Tableau to actually get my predictions. And I choose automated. That's something for now, I always chose automated. When you do manual, you can sort of tweak a bit what sort of algorithms it uses, etc. But in this case, I just want to let it do its thing on its own. And then I say create story. Great. There's no good demo without an error. So what should have happened is a little window where there's a little cartoon Einstein sort of crunching away on numbers and doing its thing. And what you would get in the end is a screen like, oh, sorry. Yeah, this. I saw there were chats. If there are questions, I'll take them at the end. What you can see is here, you can see the correlation between the variable and the predictor. So we can see customer name actually has a high correlation that tells us that there are certain customers who return a whole lot of products and certain customers who don't return at all. The city and region is quite high as well. It turns out discount and ship mode is sort of slightly a slight indicator of that. And you already get a summary here. So you can see that certain regions are less likely to return, certain regions are more likely to return, certain customers are more likely to return, and that sort of thing. In the interest of time, I'll skip over the other details in here. But the next stop is I can just click deploy my model. And again, another wizard that gives me a few details. I'll just quickly go through standard stuff. It has one really interesting feature, and that's actionable variables. And that's the stuff that you as a user actually can influence. So I can influence a discount. I can give my customer a better discount. I could influence the ship mode and say maybe I upgrade a customer. The quantity I may be able to impact to a degree. I could get in touch with my customer and say, hey, I see you order 50 of this. How about we do that 20 now and we provide 30 a month later, or that sort of thing. That was the idea behind it. And then I can click deploy. Once I've done that, I can put it here in Tableau. And the only thing you'll need to do is you'll need to drag an extension in here. Yep. And click on Einstein Discovery. It'll automatically connect to Salesforce. You log in with your credentials that you set up initially, and then you end up in a configuration screen where you just choose your model. Here, I choose predictor returns 4. Need to create a couple of parameters to actually map the fields in Tableau to the fields of the model. You can see that here, and then I'm done with it. So now, what you can see is that's a prediction about over the whole data set, but now I can click on a certain customer. And there we go. There we go. So I don't know whether that happened a couple of times in the last couple of days. It errored quickly and then it actually came up with the right number. That's actually bad because the return score is 0 already, so there's not much to improve. Let's have a look at another one, and it should refresh. Yes. I'm not quite sure what's happening. There we go, one higher. So here we have a return score of 10. That's quite low already, but it tells me how I can improve that. So I can improve the discount, for example, to 11 to 17%, and that would reduce the likelihood here. So if you see, I have my my parameters here. Currently, I have 0 discount, but if I add discount of 15%, this number goes down from 10 to 4. So I can very quickly see what impact that has, and I can act accordingly. So if I have all my orders in there, I can get in touch with my customer, say, hey, you know what? I'll give you 15% discount just because I like you. Here you go, and you likely have decreased the likelihood of that the customer returns it. Now, the problem with these made up data sets is always sort of the prediction there is only as good as the real world data, because all this data is made up. Sort of some of the assumptions here probably are not properly and not 100% true. But if you think about your own use cases and your own data, you're likely to be able to find something where you can say, oh yeah, those two are related. Those are the things that I can impact. And that makes sense, that it makes a difference. And in the end, it's a matter of actually testing it, retraining the model and see how well it works and maybe tweaking it occasionally.
Much to go there, Alex?
No, I'm basically wrapping up now.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, I'll put the link in the chat anyway. You can scan the QR code. That's the Bobby Brill's blog post that describes step by step what you need to do to do a similar model. A bit of sort of my magic 8-ball. I don't know what's going to happen next, to be honest. If I said before, if you're a Salesforce customer, there are lots of features released already. I have heard rumors that at TC in November, there are a bunch of features released that are not specific to Salesforce. So I'm quite hopeful that there are some really interesting features to be released for the core Tableau platform that doesn't require Salesforce, and that really sort of help the normal analyst to work with it. If you're keen to understand more how TCRM works in relation to Salesforce, how you can use TCRM or Discovery in Tableau, get in touch. I'm on Twitter, I have a blog, and you can find me on LinkedIn. And in the worst case, you get in touch with Fred or David, and they'll know how to get hold of me. Thanks for that.
Thank you very much, Alex. That's actually a really good insight on some of the stuff going on. Let's move on. Welcome, Marc and Razia. Would you like to take on?
Thanks, David. That was a really good demo, Alex. Really, really great. So thanks for that. Okay, so Marc and I are going to discuss some of the new features that have come out in the latest version of Tableau 2021.3. I know we're short of time, so I'll try to speed up at least my part, because I think it'll be really good to get Marc to do the demo to show everybody. Marc, did you want to quickly do an intro for yourself as well?
Yeah, no worries. Yes, so yeah, good afternoon, everyone. So I'm based in Sydney. I've been working in Tableau for the last 3.5 years. And it's funny what you show, Alex, is exactly what I spent my last night on, like playing with function discovery, and it's really fun to work with.
Great. I should probably introduce myself as well. I didn't even mention that I've been with Tableau for 6 months now, so fairly new. But anyway, let me share my screen and I will kick it off with what's new in Tableau. So, Marc, let me know if you can't see the screen or anything like that.
All good.
Okay, great. So these are some of the highlights that we have for the latest version. Now, I'm only going to run through some of these and I'll try to do it quite quickly, just in the interest of time. However, if you go onto our Tableau website, you'll be able to get a really good insight into all of these different features, whatever interests you. There'll be images and GIFs as well as README, so that you can get some more detailed explanations of how each of these features work. So for today, I will just kick off with a few of these, and I'll start off with Tableau for Slack. As most of you already know, like Tableau was acquired by Slack. Oh, can you see that? Yeah. Sorry, Tableau was acquired by Salesforce a couple of years ago, and they acquired, officially Slack this year. So together with, the great Tableau analytics platform, we've actually also got now a collaboration between Tableau and Slack. And basically what this means is that companies out there that are actually using Slack as their messaging app for businesses will actually be able to receive direct notifications from Slack. And this is via, from Tableau, sorry, and this is via if someone is mentioned in a Tableau dashboard, if a dashboard has been shared with them, or for any data-driven alerts, users will be notified in Slack as well. And for those of you that might be using, different alternatives to Slack, sort of say MS Teams or anything like that, it's something that we'll be bringing in a bit later on, but we wanted to focus on Slack first. And as Alex showed you with the TCRM demo that he did, for customers out there that are currently using TCRM, basically what this means is that we're going to focus on TCRM notifications in Slack coming, soon. So we'll keep you up to the loop and updated into what's happening with Slack for Tableau. Next, we've got personal spaces. And basically personal spaces allows users to go in and create and view their content in a personal location before they share it with other users. So some of you may have already noticed, if you go into Tableau Online or Tableau Server, there's a little personal space section. And this basically, you can think of it like a sort of like a staging area where you can go in and explore the data and basically create some workbooks before you go ahead and share that. And this is also good for admins as well, because they don't actually need to go in and create, I guess, additional projects for each of the users. This can all be done per user. And if a user, say, is an owner of a workbook that is in a public space, basically they can also move it into their personal space, do some additional tweaks to it, and so forth. What else we have is the custom samples in desktop. Now, I'm actually really excited about this one. So like I mentioned, I'm actually new to Tableau, and I've actually been working a lot on the sample workbooks. But what organizations can do now is basically tweak the sample workbooks that we ship out with Tableau Desktop and really customize it. So how this is beneficial is, if you're a data-driven, organization and you want to have your own organizational culture, what you can do is basically change sort of like the samples and customize that to include sort of like your own template dashboards. If you've got best practice dashboards, you can also use that. If you've got like onboarding capabilities, you can actually put videos of that within a dashboard and actually sort of customize this section rather than using the generic, say, Superstore. You can go ahead and basically sort of drive that organizational culture by using and customizing Tableau Desktop. We also have the ability now to go ahead and rename published data sources. So previously on Tableau Online or Tableau Server, if you wanted to rename those published data sources, you'd had to go back to Tableau Desktop and basically rename it there and republish it back. But now we've got the capability to do that within Tableau Online as well as Tableau Server. And you can also change that via Tableau's REST API also. What else do we have? We've got the ability to now basically drag and drop and move, reorder and containerize dashboard items from this item hierarchy list rather than do it within the dashboards. And again, where this could be helpful is if you've got a dashboard with multiple containers, it can get really difficult to start tweaking and reordering from there. You can actually do that from the pane itself. And lastly,
that's my winning enhancement, this version.
Pardon?
That's a major improvement.
And lastly, we've got the spatial join improvements. Now, Marc told me to hurry up on my piece, so I've done that, Marc, and I've really whizzed through it. The floor is yours. He's the map expert of Tableau, and Marc will go in and talk about the spatial join improvements.
Thanks, Razia. So hopefully I will not be too geeky. I got some kids and they have fun of me because I can spend like hours and hours just reading books about maps. So I will try to make it accessible to most people. But what I'm pretty excited about is about the new features that has been introduced, not only in this particular version, but let's say in the last 4 or 5 versions, all related to maps. And so what I will be covering during my little demonstration is a lot of these things. I mean, I only have 5 minutes, so I will have to be very fast. But hopefully we'll get a bit of it. So the main features which was released with 2021.3 in terms of maps is this thing about the new spatial joins.
Marc, you may not be aware you're not sharing at this stage.
It's meant to be. I'm sharing now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I'm sharing now this guy. Sorry, where is it? Yes. So what I want to do is I want to talk about something which is called spatial join. And what this thing can achieve is to create this kind of visualization. So let's have a look at what we've got. Essentially, the goal of this visualization is to show on one map earthquake along with tectonic plates. And what I want to get from it is the relationship, how far, like what's the proportion of earthquake which are next to tectonic plates boundaries. So it's a bit small now, but maybe I can zoom in. So maybe Razia, can you tell me what's your favorite place in the planet? We zoom there.
Well, I was born in Fiji, so let's start with that.
Okay, so let's zoom into Fiji. And you can see that fuzzy, I think, is this island here, but it's actually scattered with dots. So what are these dots? They are earthquake. And what we are doing here is that we're having a buffer, so a radius of 50 kilometers. And you can see that some of the dots are orange, some are blue. So the ones which are orange are the ones which are like intersecting like these borders here. So for instance, you can see that there's a bunch of earthquake here that are touching the Balmoral Reef to Conway Reef boundary. And so then you can calculate things like you can calculate the percentage of earthquake which are within 50 kilometers of a boundary. So hopefully you get what we want to do here, and we'll try to build it together. So for the interest of time, I already did the first part, which was to bring in the earthquake. So in my example, I had one Excel file, and then my Excel file did contain latitude and longitude. And then what I use, I basically create an object. So if I'm going to earthquake with buffer, basically you can see here, I create a calculation that contains two functions. First one is to create make point. So basically I'm creating an object, a point, made up of latitude and longitude. And then I'm creating a buffer with 50 kilometers around it. And so obviously, like each of my dots is 50 kilometer radius. And you may have noticed that some of the dots are bigger than the others. This is just because we are using the Mercator projection, which have a tendency to make everything in the north bigger. But believe me, this is 50 kilometers, and this little dot is also 50 kilometers. So what's next? Now we want to add together the boundary on it. So just to show you, I've got this file here, if it's come through, with my boundaries. And in that scenario, it's actually it's a shape file, right? And now you can see that I've got all the boundaries. I can put my mouse around it. So the question is, how can I put these two layers together? So right now, you can create multiple layers in Tableau, but they have to belong to the same data source. How can you do that? There's two options essentially. First option is to create a union. Second option is to create a join. Here we are dealing with geographical objects. We can use a join based on the geography, because what is in common between my two data sources, the one with earthquake and the one with boundaries, is where they're located. So let's try to do that. So I will go onto my data source side, and I will actually go to the other one. I'll go to the earthquake. And now I want to add my boundary to it. So I will go and connect onto my spatial file. I'm not in the right folder, so give me one sec. Here, I'm going to this guy here, and I will take my shapefile here. Then next, what I'm going to do, I'll create a join. So I need to double click because, you know, by default, your system wants to create a relationship. Yes. So I will double click there. And then I can drag my boundary next to it, next to earthquake. And then I will have a UI to create a join. In that scenario, what I need to do, I will create this new special join, which is I can make an intersection between a line, which is my boundary, along with my polygons, which is my earthquake. So see, right now I have the file as it was initially. I don't have my objects with the buffer yet, but no issues. I can create it by using calculation. So I just made a copy and paste of what I had before. And then on the right-hand side, the only thing I need to do is to select my geometry object. And then I will use my intersect operator. It will take a few seconds. And now if I'm going back to my, my view where I had my earthquake. So right now it still looks the same because I haven't put my new layer yet, but it's what I will be doing now. So I will take my geometry object, which are in my border. And so, you know, in the past, when you wanted to put multiple layers together, what you were doing, you were creating the dual axis. You could still do that, but it's much more efficient to use the new-ish functionality, which is to drag this onto my mark layer, just like that. And now I've got my borders. I need to create, I want to create one mark for each border. So I will just bring my name onto the detail, like that. Now I can select those guys, right? Cool. So what you may have noticed is that actually my number of earthquakes are massively reduced. because what I've been doing now, I'm only showing the one which are within 50 kilometers. And maybe what you want to do, you don't want to eliminate the other ones, but maybe you want to mark them differently. So what you can do, you can go back to my data source, and you will replace my inner join by a full outer join like this. So now I will not lose any boundaries. I will not lose any earthquake. Going back to there, you will see the impact of this. Now, just like that, I have all my earthquake back in place. But now what if I want to make a distinction? So I want to put like the one which are intersecting a border in a different color. So I can just go here and create a little calculation. So basically what I'm doing, I will be counting the number of boundaries for each volcanoes. And basically I will compare that to zero. So you know why I'm just not comparing to one, for instance, because you may have an earthquake which is actually close to many borders at the same time. So what are we doing by this? I'm creating this little Boolean, and I will put it within 50 kilometers. And now I can bring this onto my earthquake. And now some of the dots should change color. Yeah, so you can see it here. So see the one which are intersecting are orange, the one which are a bit further away, they are blue. Okay. So if I wanted to do a bit more complicated, next thing it will be to add. So if you remember, I was going back to the first one here. There was actually a third layer, which was the tectonic plate itself. So for the interest of time, I will not be doing it, but I can just show you here. So if I'm going back to the here, you can see that there's actually 3 layers. And one of the new features as well that we got in Tableau is the option to decide which layer should be displayed using this check mark. So for instance, I can get rid of plates if I wanted. And I can also decide whether I want them to be interactive. So for instance, if I'm clicking unlocking here, it means that if I want to, I'm able to select the plate itself. And the last function I want to introduce is that you can see that each of the plate has a surface. Again, it's something that you can calculate now in Tableau using one of the new functions. So we stop here. I'm a bit beyond time, but what I wanted to recap here is that in a few minutes, we've been seeing a lot of different things. We've been seeing how to have more than 2 layers. We've been seeing this new kind of special joint. Used to be only polygon with points. Now we can do polygon to polygon, polygon to line, and line to line. And we've been also seeing how to do surface. And this really and you can do a lot of things now using this kind of functionality. So I'm pretty excited about it, and hopefully you are too.
There's some great stuff going on there. That's really good. Thank you all. Fred, would you like to take on for the closeout?
Yes. Do you want to share your screen again, Dave?
Yeah.
And I'm excited, Marc. I love marking with maps. I'm not a map expert, but I love doing maps in Tableau, and that's a pretty cool feature. Thanks. Yeah, thanks, Marco. Thanks, Alex. I think Alex is gone. Marc and Razia, thanks again. I've put in the chat the link for the Google form if you want to present. The talks are really with users, so not only us. So we need presenters. So put your name there or contact us. A few events you might have heard about. The Tableau conference is coming up soon, so early November. So there's a lot of sessions planned. We're also planning to have a APAC kind of meetup. So just joining, I think it's always fun. Obviously, it's virtual. Couple of training sessions, Tableau server admin and Tableau server architecture, virtual class. I think those are run by Dave, I believe.
Yeah.
And obviously the next talk, we meet up every 2 to 3 months. Last time we did a talk that was a virtual talk plus met in person in Brisbane. So we thought we'd try a different time slot and a different format. So if you have any feedback, contact us, whether you prefer the virtual one or meet in person. We're probably going to alternate, but I just wanted to say thank you very much for joining us. I think we've had 4 amazing presentations, all very different topics, but all around Tableau. So I think it's great community. So I just want to close. Thank you very much. And then we see you soon. And obviously, that event is recorded. So we'll send you the link through Splash, so you get to see the recording and practice Tableau CRM and the maps as well. Cool. See you next time.
Very good. Thank you.
See you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. And just turn your camera on and say hello if you want, if you've got 2 minutes. Thanks, Marco. That was great talk.
Thanks.
Thanks very much, Fred.
See you later.